one time that has stuck with me, that I encountered suicide and somebody having suicidal thoughts was in middle school. I was really good friends with this person, and they came up to me and told me that they were hurting themselves, and it was because they were always sad, and the only way they were happy was when they hurt themselves, and that sometimes they felt like they couldn't go on in life. And me, being the young kid I was and uneducated about it, I turned my back to it, and I was ignorant because I thought they wanted attention and that they were seeking attention by telling people that they were feeling this way. They ended up getting help. Sadly, I did not help them, and I wish I could have. And it's from recent events, I have started thinking back on times where people have come up to me and told me that they were going through things, and I didn't believe them or didn't care. It seems like you only care after something has happened. I wish that I had known more about it and I had learned more about it in school.
I don't think that schools are saying enough about suicide or about the actual emotions or the feelings about it. I think that schools kind of take a more, a more intellectual approach to it, but just teaching about mental health in a really educational way but not an emotional way can be hard, because if they treat it as something that doesn't have feelings attached to it and that doesn't really affect people, and they don't, I guess, normalize it in a way, make it something that people realize happens in real life, then it can be hard for students to understand it.
Our schools, I feel, should address the issue in depth in that how do we as teenagers cope with the fact that one of our friends has either killed or almost killed themselves. Not just say, we heroically saved this kid who thought about it and tell the same story year after year. We should take the time in class to really talk about how to cope with the death and how to look out for each other and make sure that we all are all right.
I feel like we don't talk about it a lot in school because, we have our units where we talk about bullying and mental health, and how it's bad and the signs and what it is, but we don't really talk about how to deal with it or cope with it, personally, if it's happening to you or a friend. We tend to stick to what the school gives the teachers and tells them to teach. They don't go in depth. It's kind of a subject that I feel like when the teachers are teaching, they like to get through it as quick as possible and on to the next unit, because it is tough to deal with, and it's scary to know that young kids are feeling this type of way.
So the first time that I had to deal with suicide or a friend feeling suicidal was in 7th grade. I was really close friends with this person, and they told me that they felt suicidal and depressed and that they were going through a lot, and I didn't really understand because I hadn't really been told about it. I was homeschooled for elementary school, so I hadn't really interacted with other people a lot. I didn't understand people, and so I got scared of something that I couldn't really understand, and so I pushed them away, and I didn't really listen to them. I didn't want to talk to them, and we got in a big fight, and they didn't do anything. We're still friends. They're okay, but just knowing that I pushed them away when they were trying to reach out to me and confide in me and tell me that they were going through something, and they were showing me that they wanted me to be there for them, and I chose not to be because it was something that I didn't want to have to deal with, was really hard, because I like thinking back on it and all the things that could have happened because I wasn't prepared to be there for somebody, was really awful. And the education that I got about it was more from experience and from like the internet. I think that I probably learned more about this issue from the internet and videos and things like that than I did from school, and nobody really told me how to deal with it when a friend tells you about how they feel. And so the next year, when that friend said that they were still sometimes feeling suicidal, I had learned my lesson, and I went and told somebody about it, and I told an adult, and they got help, and they're okay now. And I think that it would have been really good if I had just known about that beforehand and known how to deal with the situation instead of pushing somebody away and making them feel like it wasn't okay to confide in me and tell me how they feel.
I think that they certainly have a big staff of counselors and, of course, teachers and all of the administration, but there are a lot of students. And to put the onus on them to be watching every student and observing them, I think is a huge challenge for them. But at the same time, I think that it's really part of their job. I mean, they're with students many hours every day, and being educated and educating about the issue of suicide and being aware of the students, being observant, is really important. And it's a tough job for them, but I think that it could be maybe put on a higher priority for them, because their students are going through so much. There's so much pressure on them with their studies, with their family life, that it's a vital time for them to be observant.
I feel that there are a few teachers that are really good about having their door open. Sometimes it's easier to talk to the teachers than to talk to the counselors. But I think that it's really luck of the draw with teachers a lot of the time. Sometimes students get teachers that really don't seem like they care about anything other than just doing their job and getting done with the day. And then there are teachers that I think really are there for students. But I feel like all the teachers should be more trained to be counselors, and like any teacher that you talk to should be very available to talk to about mental health or whatever you're going through, because I feel like a lot of the time teachers are scary to approach.
When somebody goes to a counselor or teacher and tells them that they are having suicidal thoughts, a lot of the time the teacher or the counselor fills out a report and says these are the steps you need to do, go do them. And they don't really think about how those specific set of steps don't always work for every individual person. I feel like we should take more time to figure out why this person is feeling this way and how to help them, and not view teenagers as just a whole, but individuals.
I think the schools should take a little bit more than the parents, just because not every student at school has the best relationship with their parents. Some kids may not feel comfortable talking with their parents. Some parents may not listen to the student. And a school is a place where I think a lot of students can really open up to a lot of friends and sometimes teachers about how they're really feeling. And so having the support with teachers, counselors, and the discussions in class can really, I think, be the breaking point of life or death, in that they know they have places where to talk. They have the stuff they need to talk. And they have the people there, because I don't think every parent may take their kids seriously and think, oh, they just need attention from us. whereas in school, I think they can really open up with the discussions that they could have.
I think that it is collectively everyone's responsibility. I think that the parents should not push it on the school, but I also feel that the schools should not push it on parents. I think that it should just be everyone's collective responsibility, and there's no use in pointing fingers once something has already happened. There's no use in saying that it was the parents' fault for not bringing up their kid right, or that it was students' fault for not being there as friends, or the school's fault for not taking the right action. I think that everybody should just be there and help and do their best and not focus so much on pointing fingers.
I don't think it's the sole responsibility of the friends to look for the signs, just because we all are teenagers. We all have a lot of issues and problems and drama that we deal with, but I do think we all own some part of the responsibility to make sure that everyone is actually doing all right. Everyone's okay. No one's feeling like the need to kill themselves over a problem they're having. And yeah, I think it is a lot of pressure when something does happen, because then everyone is aware that to make sure all their friends are doing okay. But it shouldn't be that much of it should be more of like, we should be all more aware that, our friends could be struggling, and we should really just be there to make sure they're doing okay.
I think people who don't take this issue seriously and don't think it's a big deal haven't dealt with it before and don't understand. And I think that has to do with education and the school systems not teaching it as well as they could. I would just say to them that I feel bad because so much is going on right now in our world, and a lot of things are important, but this is too, because it's dealing with human lives, our future.
The school doesn't really talk a lot about suicide after it happens. I feel that you only really find out through other students, and a lot of the time they don't take it seriously. It's more like you just hear that somebody at another school committed suicide, and people joke about it, or people don't really know who they were, and I feel that the school doesn't address it as an issue that we should talk about, which can be tricky because then people hear about it, but they don't hear about why it's an issue, and I think that can set off a chain reaction where people see that as an option, and they see that somebody else did it, and people didn't really care or notice, or only a few people cared for a week, and then it was just another thing that passed on, and nobody really talks about it anymore.
A lot of people think that if they try to talk to somebody about mental health or them having issues with mental health, a lot of people are going to write it off as you want attention or you're being dramatic, when that's not the truth. I feel like a lot of people are scared to talk about these type of problems because it's seen as such a bad thing, or it's like society sees it as this person can just stop being sad, when it's not like that. It is a mental illness. People don't have control over it. So when somebody does finally open up about it and other people respond to it with, you were dramatic, or you're lying, you want the attention, it just makes other people who are feeling the same way not want to talk about it either. And then we kind of say, okay, that was it. That's all. Let's go to the next thing. And so that's kind of how I felt about it. I was like, oh, well, they're hurting, but it passes. That's what we've learned. It passes. So if you just ignore it, it'll go away faster, which is not the case whatsoever. And now, as we've become more open about it, through things like social media, sadly, instead of learning about it properly in school, I've noticed it a lot more. When I hear 10-year-olds now saying that they don't want to live anymore and that they want to die because it'd be so much easier, I'm flabbergasted because when I was 10, I had no idea that people committed suicide because they were feeling a certain way.
Anybody who has feelings of suicide or very depressed are going to, that could happen at any time of the day, and it could be for any reason, either a family situation or a school situation or friends, a friendship situation. And some people might say, okay, well, it's just between a family because the parents will know best and they know how to handle their children. But again, sometimes the pressure of suicide is about the parents and about the adults in their life. And so relying on them obviously isn't going to work. I mean, if a student is feeling a lot of pressure and having a lot of depression issues because of their family members, they're not going to talk to their family members, obviously. So the family can't do it always. Now, they're a big part, though, of being observant about it and being responsive to it if they can. But still, if it is a family issue and students are not going to talk to their parents about it, then it pushes closer to their friends, and it pushes the issue more to the school and the staff in the school to be observant and perhaps help out.
People don't like to talk about mental health issues a lot of the time because it can be uncomfortable or it can be a scary topic to approach. And sometimes you can tell yourself that if you don't talk about it, then it's not real. And so if teachers just don't talk about it, then maybe people won't know about it and then they won't have those thoughts or they won't feel that way.
It's hard to catch a lot of the time. People who end up committing suicide, everybody says, I never saw that coming. Like, they were such a happy person. They had such a wonderful life. So, yeah, I think it's a group effort. I think that it's not anybody's responsibility, individually, to make sure everyone around them is doing okay. People need to take care of themselves and make sure they are doing okay as well. But I think that it is the responsibility to be aware.
I think a lot of teenagers feel trapped in that if one thing goes wrong, or a lot of friendships over social media and things and fights, they feel that it's not going to get better because everyone knows about it, everyone's talking about it. And so they really need to think, this is just one part of our life and that we have a lot more to look forward to, and to just keep going because it is going to get better.
A lot of the time with social media, things like social media, it's kind of broadcasted almost. We talk about oh my gosh, that's so sad, and we post about it, or people make jokes about it, and it makes it seem like that's the only way out for a lot of people who are going through depression or having suicidal thoughts. It makes it seem like, oh, maybe if I do it, then people will finally notice me, almost.
There should be a unit in health class or something more about mental health and depression particularly, or suicide, and talking about how to cope with when somebody does commit suicide, or who you can talk to, how to deal with your friends telling you that they're suicidal, things like that, because I think that a lot of the time people get put in situations and they don't know how to react, and so they don't necessarily react in the right way.
People don't say things like they want to end their life because they want attention. That isn't something to joke about. We should stop posting things like I want to kill myself on social media, and we're all guilty of joking around about it because that's the easiest way to cope. But we should start being more aware, because it's a thing that a lot of people go through, any age, any time, any place.
I'm always concerned about my children and how they're doing in school and how they're getting along with others and how they're feeling. And, you know, sometimes as a parent, though, we are not always fully connected with exactly what our kids are doing. I mean, that's going to happen. I mean, everybody's busy. We're all doing all kinds of things. And to be honest, I don't see my kids every hour of every day. They're at school, we're working, doing other things. And so it's not surprising that a parent would not always be in touch with exactly all the feelings that their children have.
The first time I learned that my friend was going through depression and having suicidal thoughts, it was like how reality just hit. I was living in this world of rainbows and sunshine, and I didn't take a moment to realize that other people don't feel the same as me all the time, and they have reasons that they're going through hard times. I was shocked first, obviously, and then the more I thought about it, I felt almost oblivious, because I should have seen it coming, and I should have noticed that my friend was going through something and that I could have been there to help.
For me, it's really hard to hear about other people going through things, because you feel like people are not going through things because they're just happy, and maybe they're popular, they have a lot of friends, they're always saying nice things, and so it's easy to tell yourself that everybody is just okay all the time, and that's not always true, and so it kind of makes it harder to trust people and to feel like people are actually happy when they say they are.
When you lose someone, you just, the first thing that pops in my head is, should I have said something? Did I know anything? And then I start thinking of all the memories that I've ever had with them. They go through my head. And I look in every single memory that I have in my head, trying to think of, was there something, could I have stopped something that did I even see anything? And it really comes down to could I have prevented it or not?
Are the schools doing enough to help students if they have depression issues or suicide issues? Probably not. It is very hard for them to be observant, but I think that they could create an atmosphere that allows students to be more open with each other and the staff, and maybe create a space for when those challenges come up for kids, that they can talk about it more, either with their friends or with counselors or staff. Absolutely, I think that they could do more to help that open conversation.
I feel like that isn't something personally that my teachers have ever talked about, is what to do after. They talk about how to prevent suicide, but they never talk about what happens after you know somebody who has committed suicide, because that brings tears and real feelings to the classroom, which makes their job a lot harder, I feel like. So it's easier to just skip over it, but I do think it is a very important thing to start talking about.
I think knowing that one of my friends was suicidal was really hard for me, because I want everybody to be happy and okay and doing great, and I know that that's not always how it is, and it was kind of like a slap in the face of just the harsh reality of what people are going through behind the scenes.
I would want them to know that if they are going through hard times, or if they know somebody who's going through hard times, it's not easy, and you're not the only person in the world feeling this way, even though it seems like that sometimes. And that you can get help. Sometimes it's a little harder to find it, but it does come along eventually. And as soon as you ask for it, it's a lot easier. Don't hold it in.
I think a lot of people take suicide, since it's not that if it's not talked about, it can't be a real issue right now or any time, that people can look at it maybe for a month and be like, oh yeah, we talked about it, and then just turn away from the issue and think, well, it's talked about, we're good.
This is a huge problem in society today, and we need to not turn a blind eye to it and act like it's not a big deal, because it really is.